Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. Today, we start to break into some trade deadline conversations, potential deals, how likely they are, and what they'll cost, especially some focus on the Twins and the Orioles as trade partners.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over in 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio for over 5 years now in the city of brotherly love here in Philadelphia. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 4 seasons, and this is also my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that helps us out. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. We are available on YouTube. All of that stuff is free and easy to do. And not only does it help us out here on Locked On Phillies, but it'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted. If you like, subscribe, rate, review, all of that great stuff. So it helps you, helps me. It's free, and I'd really appreciate it if you did that. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Go ahead and check out Game Time. I'm going up to New York to watch the Phillies play the Yankees tonight and tomorrow. So 2 games, 2 Game Time ticket purchases. Yep, I use them for myself, so you should as well. We'll talk more about that. But let's talk today some trades. I promised you I was going to do that, and then there was a lot to break down on yesterday's episode from the series finale against the Red Sox. But it's about that time where we start to look into these trade deadline potential deals. So here's how this is going to work. And we're going to look at the Twins as potential trade partners. We're going to look at the Orioles as potential trade partners. Then we're going to get into the preview of the Phillies series with the Yankees. We are going to talk about that later on in the episode. But here's the kind of breakdown of how these segments are going to go, because we're going to do it for the Pirates. We're going to do it for the Guardians. There are multiple teams that the Phillies could look at that are not just places where they could pick up one guy, places where they could pick up multiple guys. So there's layers to every single one of these conversations. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the players that could be available and how much they will cost. Now, I'm not in the business of saying, oh yeah, I would trade Arun Escobar and Mick Abel, and that would fit for a Yohan Duran trade if maybe you threw in the Phillies number 18 overall prospect. Like, no, that's a crapshoot. I'm not doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a simple value to it. So either high value trade, meaning everybody's on the table who's on the table, right? And for me, I've said Painter is not on the table, but a high value trade is like, you may even think about Painter. Like, everything needs to be on the table to get that done. A mid-value trade, which is going to be, hey, you might move a guy like Abel and then some other prospects. You might move a guy like Miller and then some other prospects. It probably won't be 2 of your top guys. Definitely won't be 3, but it's kind of in that mid-level range. And then a low value is one where you can maybe throw in like one of those guys that are near the bottom part of the MLB top 100 players list. When it comes to the minor league pipeline, top 100 prospects, I should say. And then you can get away with doing that deal like at a very low value, right? So we'll look at that. I'm not going to assign specific names because I don't know, but I do know the general cost of what these guys will be or what these packages will be. So let's start with the Twins, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Now, the Twins are a team that has popped up a bunch when it comes to conversations about the Philadelphia Phillies and potential trade packages, right? And part of that reason is because right now they are struggling in the American League Central. They're 10.5 games back on the Detroit Tigers. Now we need the Tigers to keep winning because the Twins were like 13.5, 14 games back just a couple weeks ago, and the Tigers have kind of came back down to earth just a little bit. You don't want them to feel like they have a chance, the Minnesota Twins. But they're 10.5 games out. Deadline is just a couple of days away on July 31st. They're going to be sellers. And there are some big-time names that are available from the Minnesota Twins or presumed to be available that you look at and say, okay, we could go out and get those guys. So the number one name on the Minnesota Twins that you're going to want to look at is closer Yohan Duran. Yohan Duran is a monster. He is an absolute tank of a man that throws 103, 104, splitter at triple digits. Like, who throws a triple digit splitter? Like, it's not how baseball works. He's near unhittable. He's one of the best strikeout arms in all of baseball. His deficiency, to use the Moneyball line, is he pitches for the Minnesota Twins, so nobody cares. Right? He's very, very good, though. He would be a big-time high-leverage arm. That is my number one want at the deadline. I want Yohan Duran on this Phillies team. Also controllable going forward. So that will cost you a little bit more. The thought process with a lot of these teams that we're going to be breaking down is they also have outfielders potentially available. And the Minnesota Twins are in that. Now, the big name that everybody knows is Byron Buxton. Hit for the cycle recently, competed in the home run derby recently, very injury prone, but he's only under team control for 3 more years, and those years are only at $15 million apiece. So the contract that everyone thinks, oh, he's got this giant deal, it's not that big of a deal, right? You can stomach bringing that in, but how much will you have to give up to get him and Durant? If you're going to do that package, that is absolutely high value trade. You'd have to empty everything. Those would be like your only 2 acquisitions. And then maybe you could find like a no-name reliever somewhere that you could just add to the bullpen. But that would be Yohan Duran, right field, outfield bat, pop, everything, injury prone. Painter, Abel, Miller, Crawford, Escobar, Tait, everything would have to be on the table if that's a deal that you want to make, which is why it's not a deal I see as likely. It's just you don't really see these blockbuster trades anymore in Major League Baseball. Now, are there other ways to make this work? Well, yes. And one of those is by looking at a guy in the outfield that maybe isn't controllable for much longer, isn't in a situation where he looks like this perennial all-star when he's healthy, and a guy that played in the NL East just last year. Harrison Bader is also on the Minnesota Twins. So what would a package of Yohan Duran and Harrison Bader require you to give up? Now, that may be more manageable. That is still probably verging on a high-level cost, but I don't think you'd have to give up Painter. I don't. I think it would be like 2 of your top prospects. Maybe you throw in like Max Kepler or Brandon Marsh or something. Man, Max Kepler, go back to Minnesota. Or Brandon Marsh to like clear up space at the major league level for Bader to play, and then you have Crawford come up. I don't know, but that's not a all hands on deck. It is still a high cost trade because of Duran, who is probably going to be the best relief pitcher available on the market. At least in my opinion, he is. And Minnesota's going to want a lot back for that. But it won't be shell everything out for Buxton and Duran. Duran and Bader. Bader's right-handed bat was pretty darn good for the Mets last year. And we should remember that because they knocked the Phillies out of the postseason. So that's a look that you want to see. And then Griffin Jax is another name where if you say, okay, well, maybe Duran is not a guy that you can sell out and get. But maybe you get like a Griffin Jax, who right now has a 4.09 ERA, a 1.23 WHIP. But he's been a pretty darn good relief pitcher in his career. His career, he's looking at 334 innings pitched at the major league level and 334 2/3 innings pitched at the major league level, right? But overall, I mean, you're looking at a 4.01 ERA. He's not amazing. He's not anything crazy, but he would give you a righty, high leverage arm at 30 years of age. Throws pretty darn hard. That would be like if you did him and Bader, and then you went and got, I don't know, another high leverage reliever like Emmanuel Clase, and you sold that for just a 1 player. So that could be a 2-player of 2 lower level signings or trades, I should say. And then you're looking at a situation where you go ahead and you get that high leverage reliever from somewhere else. And then you add a middle of the bullpen guy, right-handed outfield bat. Didn't spend too much on that. Sell out for Emmanuel Clase, Mason Miller, David Bednar, Felix Batista. We'll look at all of those guys and all of those teams as the week progresses. But that's a way to potentially do that with Minnesota. So those are the 4 names I would be aware of. Griffin Jax, Yohan Duran, the 2 relief pitchers, Byron Buxton, Harrison Bader. And that last one, by the way, would be a mid-level trade, right? You could probably just do like, I don't know, Aiden Miller and then some other low-level prospects and get that done. and say, okay, come on over here, boys. And we'll see if that'll be enough to get it done. But the Twins are definitely a focus for the Philadelphia Phillies. They've been sniffing around the American League Central because the Tigers ran away with it so quickly at the start of the month of July, right? So they've made it really a one-team race in the Central for who's going to win it, and then that makes it tougher for these other teams to make the postseason. So that's the potential trade Twins edition of what they could do, how much it could cost, and who the players are to know. But the Twins aren't the only team that the Phillies are looking at. No, far from it. There are new teams popping up every day. This team is one of the first teams that popped up, though. And we've already done a crossover episode with Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles to talk about potential trade spots for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, part of that was us going back and forth on trying to make a hypothetical deal, but where the Phillies are at now, where the Orioles are at now, how has it changed? And how likely is it to actually happen when we compare it to what we just talked about with the Twins? Cost, all of that. We will discuss that coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about game time first, though, because I already told you this episode. I'm going up to New York to watch the Phillies play the Yankees. And I got my tickets for Friday night and Saturday night through our friends over at GameTime. They're the best. I know exactly where I'm sitting. I know exactly the view I'm going to have. If anything goes wrong with getting up there, I've got my GameTime guarantee. Everything is great. They're such an easy website to use. And I've planned this out for a little bit. But if you decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, GameTime's the app for you. GameTime's the website for you. They're the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. And it's not just baseball. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey, comedy, concerts, theater, all of that great stuff. But right now in baseball season, with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. GameTime makes it possible. GameTime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got these incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, lowest price guarantee. I was already telling you about that takes the worry out of buying. GameTime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. I've already told you, Phil's Yanks. Take a look at that one going on tonight and tomorrow up in New York, which is not a bad drive for people there from Philly. And you can check everything before you purchase this for zone deals, seat views, all of that stuff we've been talking about. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. I can't recommend it enough. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll even get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with GameTime. All right, let's talk a little bit about the next team, the Baltimore Orioles. What do the Orioles have to offer, and why is it so tricky to get a deal done with them? Well, they have maybe even more to offer than the Minnesota Twins, and part of that is because the Orioles have more recently been a contending team. Remember, it was just 2 years ago that they won 100 games. They were a quality baseball team recently, and a lot of those guys are still there. And some of them are having rough years, but have upside. Some of them are having good years, but being dragged down by the rest of the team. The Orioles are currently 15 games back in last place in the American League East. They are 100% sellers at the deadline. That will not change. So who could they sell? Well, we talked about this in a crossover episode, myself and Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles. If you scroll through previous podcasts or previous videos, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go back and you can watch a much more in-depth version of what I'm about to do right here. But I wanted to update you on potential needs for the Phillies and how these guys fit. So here are the players that are potentially available for the Phillies from the Orioles. The outfielders are Cedric Mullins and Ramon Laureano. The relief pitchers are Felix Bautista, but then a duo of guys when you look at Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Sodto. I think I combined their last names a little bit there. Two former Phillies who the Phillies traded to Baltimore are guys that you could look at and want to focus on as far as that's concerned. So where does this rank compared to that Twins package we put together? That's the other thing that we're going to do as we continue to go through these teams in the coming week or so. Like right now, I'm recording this on the 25th. We are under a week till the trade deadline. So in the coming days, we're going to have to hop on it and talk about a lot of these potential trades and players available and rumors and stuff like that. The likelihood, the cost, everything. The likelihood of a trade with the Minnesota Twins, I'll give it like a 60% out of 100, right? That doesn't mean, I know it might read as more likely than not that the Phillies are going to trade with the Twins. All that means is it's just like, that's on the higher side of possibility. Even if I go 99%, it's the MLB trade deadline. Nothing's 100%, but you get it, right? So I would say like, it's slightly likely that the Phillies make a move with the Twins or get deep into discussion with the Twins. I would go even a higher likelihood that the Phillies engage in talks with the Baltimore Orioles because the Orioles are the team that seems more set to sell, right? They need to find a way to rebuild this thing quick, which does make it interesting. It changes their needs a little bit more than a Twins team that's going to be looking for prospects. The Orioles could be a good offload spot for a guy like Brandon Marsh if you're looking to clear space for Justin Crawford to come up. Sending Brandon Marsh down there, maybe it's Marsh for Anthony Dominguez, 1-for-1, right? That could be something that happens. But it does open up intriguing possibilities for current Major League players, or a big thing that Orioles fans want to see right now is Major League ready starting pitching prospects. And the Phillies have two of them, in Abel and Painter. Now, are there any deals with the Orioles that would have Andrew Painter on the table? No, because unfortunately for the Orioles, they just don't have the power that the Minnesota Twins have as far as what the Phillies need. Ramon Laureano and Cedric Mullins both fit much more into the category of Harrison Bader than they do Byron Buxton. And remember, Cedric Mullins is a lefty. So I don't think the Phillies are going to go out and acquire a left-handed outfield bat. I just don't see that as a realistic possibility, especially a guy like Mullins who is having a strikingly similar year to Max Kepler. So, no, I don't really have the interest in Mullins, and I don't think the Phillies will either. Now, Laureano is a right-handed bat out there in the outfield that could fit in well with this lineup. And he's not anything exceptional, but he's similar to Bader in that he's not a bad player. He's a professional hitter. He's having a solid year. You can lengthen the lineup a little bit. He'll give you more than Max Kepler has given you this year. But that, if that's your move, is much more like an Austin Hayes move from last year. So the real prize here is Felix Bautista. That is the best player of the ones that I've listed so far. It doesn't sound like the Orioles are interested in moving off him, though. And if they are going to move off him, it sounds like Painter is going to be an ask. And that would be crazy, trading Andrew Painter for Felix Bautista. Like, I know you need somebody at the back end of the bullpen, but you don't need him at the cost of Andrew Painter. And that's why the Orioles are going to be tricky to deal with, because other than that, you could be looking at a more ancillary move, right? A guy like Anthony Dominguez, a guy like Gregory Sodto, maybe some other pieces in their bullpen that you may want to take a look at. But where this gets tricky is those guys coming back to Philadelphia. And like, we liked Sir Anthony here. We did. But kind of fell out of favor, and it felt like his time was done here. Are you willing to welcome him back? We did not like Gregory Sodto here. If that move gets made, the fan base is up in arms. If Dave Dombrowski willing to do that, I don't think that he is. I think he looks at that and knows that dude's going to have an uphill battle to even be liked in this town. And Philly can boo and make it uncomfortable for you, and rightfully so, because Sodto was not good here. I just don't think that that's a good experiment to go through for the Philadelphia Phillies to add him back to this team. So I'm taking Sodto completely off the list. I do not think that would ever happen. I'm also taking Batista half off the list because it doesn't seem like the Orioles would be interested in trading him. And Mullins is also half off the list because he doesn't really fit as a left-handed bat, and he hasn't had a great season. So let's look at a duo of Ramon Laureano and Sir Anthony Dominguez. Let's look at those two guys and say, what would you have to give up? What is the cost of that trade? Because that seems to be the only likely trade. A Batista-Mullins trade would be expensive, maybe possible, but expensive. And I don't think that you're getting enough bang for your buck if you're putting a guy like Andrew Painter and then maybe a guy like Justin Crawford in that deal. That feels like an overpay, and that feels like the asking price that the Orioles are going to want. Now, when you look at the Laureano and Sir Anthony potential trade, not a lot of team control for those guys. Not exactly these high potential players, right? You know what they are. And they're not breaking the bank, and they're also not solving all of your problems. But they would be valuable depth pieces. So again, that's what we're looking for, is like a mid-level type of cost, right? Maybe one of those top 100 prospects and then some other guys filled in there, or maybe like a major league guy that you're trying to offload. That would be what you're looking at there. You might say, Connor, you haven't done any low-cost deals. Gregory Sodto individually would be a low-cost deal, right? Griffin Jacks individually from Minnesota would probably be a low-cost deal. Those are some of the ones that would be like, hey, you could do it. I don't know how much closer it really gets you, and do you want to waste assets rather than making a big swing altogether? So starting to see a little bit. There are teams with interesting combinations, but once you get into the combo deals, it becomes tougher to work out, there's more moving pieces, more prospects involved, more fit question, more do they want to part with both of these guys? Sometimes you get a discount for buying in bulk. Sometimes you buy from in bulk from a team that doesn't have the right price point, and they're trying to take too much from you. So there's a lot to consider, but those are just some names to keep an eye on for those two teams. On Monday, we're going to take a look at the Cleveland Guardians, and also some teams that we got to take a look at. I almost said Oakland Athletics. The Athletics, wherever you want to call them, Sacramento Athletics, Oakland Athletics, Vegas Athletics. We'll take a look at the Athletics. We'll take a look at the Pirates. There are a lot of teams still out there that the Phillies could potentially look at, but there are the Twins and now the Orioles packages and how much they cost. Coming up next, the team that will not be selling, the New York Yankees. No, they're competing, but they've had a weird year too. So can the Phillies go up to New York, take 2 or 3, knock them off? We will preview that series and talk about how kind of similar these teams have been this season as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about Game Day Hue first, because Game Day Hue makes clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your color speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. Now, I love wearing it on the golf course. I got a couple of hats from Game Day Hue. I got a golf glove from Game Day Hue. There was a point this week where, well, actually, I think I've done it twice because I play a lot of golf, where I've worn the hat combo with the glove. Looks sharp, feels good. It's high quality material. And honestly, people notice. They're like, cool hat, no logo. I kind of like that. I do too. And there's plenty of places you can wear it because it just goes with any outfit of your favorite team. For me, I got the throwback maroon color for the Phillies because I feel like I have a lot of red Philly stuff. I don't have a lot of maroon Philly stuff. So I wanted to add that to the repertoire there to be able to go throwback jersey. And I mean, Game Day Hue helped me with that. It looks great. It feels great. It's awesome to be able to have. It's the kind of team that reps your hat subtly, or reps your team. It's the kind of hat that reps your team subtly without like showing it too much. So it's a great way to show off your fandom. And it's not just those hats. Like I said, check out their split shade gloves made for the golf course, or the perfect gift for the fan who has everything. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDay, H-U-E, GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. Go ahead and check our friends out. Phil's Yanks, big time matchup up there in New York. You know what? It's funny. I feel like these teams don't play as much as they should. It's weird. And now every year, every team plays each other. But why do I feel like the Phillies play Boston so much more often than they play the Yankees? I know you just finished a series with the Red Sox, and maybe that's just my brain incepting me. But whatever the case, whenever the Phillies and Yankees get together, whenever the Phillies and Red Sox get together, whenever the Phillies play the AL East teams, really, it's just they're intriguing series. And we know part of the thought between Phillies and Yankees is always going to go back to the 2009 World Series and the grudge that's there. It's Philly, New York. There's grudges there in like every sport. So there's a lot of rivalry here, even though they're separate leagues, separate divisions. Still, it'll be a fun series. And the Phillies have some solid pitching going into the series that they can look at. They've got Taijuan Walker going in Game 1 tonight. Tomorrow, they've got a day game at 1:05 with Ranger Suarez on the mound. And then you wrap up the series on a Sunday, and it's a Wheels Day. And that's a nice matchup because he goes against Carlos Rodon, who's had a nice year for them. So the pitching matchups are pretty standard as far as like level of evenness, I will say. Tonight with Taijuan Walker, he's not your best. He's 3-5 with a 3.75 ERA. But he's facing off against Will Warren, who's got a 4.91 ERA and a 6-5 record. So it's not like one of those guys significantly better than the other. Will Warren tonight, look out for the strikeout. He struck out 117 in 99 innings, so he does have plus strikeout stuff. The Phillies have been good about cutting down on the strikeouts lately, but that has been an Achilles heel of this team, so that's what they can't get away from. And Taijuan Walker up there at Yankee Stadium, pitching to Aaron Judge, is kind of a nightmare scenario. So we will see how that goes. But even pitching matchup in game one between those guys. Even pitching matchup in game two, well, somewhat, between Ranger Suarez and Marcus Stroman. I mean, that's more on reputation because I feel like Marcus Stroman, whether he was with the Blue Jays, whether he was with the Mets, just always pitches the Phillies well. His numbers aren't that great, right? He's got a 5.64 ERA. Rangers got a 2.66. So clearly Rangers the better pitcher this year. But something about Stroman, man. It feels like the Phillies should hit him, and they don't. So we'll see how that one matches up. We'll also see if Ranger can kind of calm people down on Saturday. There have been a lot of people who have been bringing up, his velocity is down a little bit. He hasn't looked quite as sharp. This is the time of year where you worry about injuries for him. Is that going to be something that we run into again? So Rangers got some people nervous. And with Luzardo struggling in the final game against the Red Sox on Wednesday, we're going to be very keenly watching Ranger Suarez. He's not good, and Luzardo's not good. All of a sudden, you're down to two pitchers you can trust. And this rotation went from exceptional to shaky really quick. Now, if Ranger's good, still exceptional. And we know Luzardo can be very good on any given day. He just hasn't been consistent. He's trying to work stuff out. But the Ranger Suarez Marcus Stroman game, that should be won by the Phillies, but that is the one where it's like a sneaky even pitching matchup when you think about the history. And then Wheeler Rodon is no one's even with Zach Wheeler, but that's about as even as you can get when it comes to what the Yankees are trotting out there. Rodon has 10 wins on the year. He's 10-7, 3.1 ERA, 139 Ks, and 124 innings pitched. Wheeler, you know the deal. Monster. 0.88 whip, 2.39 ERA, 164 strikeouts in 128 innings. 4 more innings, nearly 30 more strikeouts. I love Zach Wheeler. And it would be great to watch him throw Sunday. And this is part of the reason that the Phillies gave him some of that extra rest coming out of the All-Star break when they reset their rotation, because they wanted him to throw against the New York Yankees. They want him to throw against the Detroit Tigers. They want him to throw against the New York Mets, right? They want Wheeler for these big series. So that'll be good to see on Sunday. You always feel like you're going to win a wheel start. So tonight's a toss-up, right? Taijuan Walker gets the job done. Great. We feel good about that. But then tomorrow when you get Ranger out there on the mound, and Sunday when you get Wheeler out there, if you do win tonight, you set yourself up for a series win because you're not losing both the Ranger and Wheeler games, I don't think. If you do lose tonight, well, you got to win those too. And you still have the advantage slightly in the pitching matchup, but they're pretty darn close there. So we'll see. And the offense is going to have to do a lot because we know the strength of the Yankees lineup, right? And we know that Aaron Judge is a monster. Just in case you forgot, he's batting .345 on the year, which is kind of a cold stretch for him. He's hit 37 home runs. He's got 84 RBIs. Kyle Schwarber has 78 RBIs. So you got 6 more ribbies than the best power hitter on the Phillies. You got 3 more home runs than the best power hitter on the Phillies. And you're batting 55 points above the best average hitter on the Phillies, which is, by the way, Trey Turner, who's still leading the National League in hits. Yeah, Judge is good. So maybe stay away from that guy. And Wheeler against Judge will be fun. Walker against Judge will be weird. Ranger against Judge could be the funniest thing ever because Ranger's not even going to care, right? He won't even give an expression. And he could have a rocket hit right back at him. They'll probably just snap it off and just be fine. And Judge will be like, who is this dude? Doesn't he know I'm a monster? So it'll be a fun series. Always is when the Phillies match up with the Yankees. We'll see if the offense carries over from the final game in the series against the Red Sox. I think with the pitching matchup, you should still expect this Phillies to win 2 out of 3, even going on the road to a place like Yankee Stadium where it can be tough to play. I think it mirrors Citizens Bank Park pretty well. And I think the Phillies will be up for this one. They need to continue to win series. And I'd hate to see them lose 4 of their last 5 series, which is what it would be if they fall 2 of 3 to the Yankees, or worse, get swept. So let's not think about that. Let's think about them taking 2 or 3, Taijuan Walker doing his job, and we will talk more about it on Monday's episode, recapping the whole series, talking about my trip up there. I'm going to see everything live and in person, so what they look like, talk to some Yankees fans and get an idea of what they think about the Phillies. There'll be a lot of stuff going on over the weekend that I will put in the content for Monday. But that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. And I will talk to you Monday on our next episode.